to introduce myself. Hello, my name is DL Mauser, and I'll be the moderator for the breakout room. I'll just take a minute to go over the ground rules. We ask everyone who's not presenting to keep their mics off, just to make it clear. Any comments and concerns, you can just type them in the chat, and then we'll have a 20-minute allocated time for a Q&A. We're going to try to keep it within the 15 minutes allocated, so everyone gets a chance to present. I'll give you a minute heads up beforehand, before like your time expires. And lastly, just remind everyone that the session is being recorded. And
can I ask what is the break? When do we go to the breakout rooms?
This is considered a breakout room. So you have different sessions right now, all of which are being recorded. So after you're done presenting, you can just go to other ones, and the recordings will be uploaded afterwards if you want to just see the ones you missed.
Okay, thank you. So if we're not presenting, we should turn off our cameras and the mic as well.
Yeah. Yes, I would ask you that kindly. So if the first presenter would like to go ahead and start.
And I think that is me, so I'll turn on my camera. My name is Gina DePaulo. I'm with the U of S Language Center. I am not able to share my, I have this, I have a share option on my screen, but I'm not able to share my screen. So I'm not going to waste your time trying to troubleshoot that anymore. And I'll just talk through my presentation for you. So my presentation is local and global spaces, and how do we create intercultural spaces online. So my program in the face-to-face world was intercultural awareness and cultural activities. So it was very, very experiential, very events focused. So when I moved to an online space, I was quite dumbfounded. I didn't know, well, how am I going to do this? So, I came from a perspective of very experiential, using the community as our resource. So we would attend events and then reflect on the cultural significance of those events. So it was kind of quite a challenge moving to the online experience from an events-based and experiential type of program. So I wish you could see my pictures, because it's a lot of groups, around tables talking, out in the parks, doing a picnic and games, doing sporting events, attending sporting events. So it was that type of thing. So my question was, how are our cultural spaces experienced and created in online environments? So how can we create rich and vibrant cultural spaces online? And as I moved my practice to an online environment, this kind of got exacerbated and magnified my own position within global flows of time and space. So as you all are experiencing right now, we're kind of in this new global space that occurs in this online world, and so space and time is a little bit different. Like, for example, it's 12:26 here, whereas it's 2:26 where you are. So all these things start to compound our experience. So I sought ways to ground, or I sought grounding principles for my practice as a coordinator of cultural awareness and activities. So I sought to carry my own lived experience to fully inhabit the online environment. And I felt deeply responsible to create an environment that was responsive and inclusive of the varied and diverse students that I serve. So it was my own connection to my local and my sense of place and embodiment in this land that kind of grounded my experience. And at the University of Saskatchewan, one of our signature areas is Indigenous research. So we always begin any meetings with an acknowledgement of, our situatedness, our place in Treaty 6 territory. So as I moved online, and that became sort of a grounding principle, was this space. And I did have some conversations with colleagues who were saying, "Oh no, we're online. You don't want to talk about Saskatoon. You don't want to talk about Saskatchewan. It's online now." And I was like, well, we all come to this online space from our embodiedness in a local space. So it's this confluence of the local and the global that I found that was fascinating to me. So what I ended up doing was really looking at my local culture and what it was that was unique about that. But what students brought into the online space was the global culture, because they were connecting with me from all over the world. So they might be in China or Vietnam or United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Argentina. And because my program focused on culture, I was able to allow them to bring their own cultural knowledges and cultural experiences into the online space. And what happened was I went from a cultural awareness program to a much more intercultural skills and awareness program. Because of their input and because of their embodiment in their own local space. So that was so interesting. And part of how I did that is I used whatever content I was working with, I would give them an assignment to bring their own local experience of that content into the online space. So for example, I did culture and cooking, culture and art, culture and virtual tours, culture and music. So we did all kinds of different intercultural things, as well as some Canadian content and content about Saskatoon, because although students were not in Saskatoon or in Canada, they still had that curiosity, and they wanted to know about Canada. They still had that curiosity about the culture, communication norms, cultural differences, educational differences. So it kind of broadened my focus and made it quite a bit more intercultural. And I was careful also to keep the focus with the local as well, because what I found is students were interested in local. Because they're on their way, they would love to be here, and they still had that curiosity. So lastly, I just have one last point that I wanted to talk about. So what my learning focuses became, and my kind of pedagogical focus, was really a constructivist model. So looking at meaning, language, cultural artifacts, student experience, active learning, and communication. And with that model, bringing that into the online space using discussion boards, bringing students into the discussions on the boards, and also into the discussions with the face-to-face or synchronous web meetings such as these. I also focused a lot on epistemic fluency, so intercultural understanding, multiple ways of knowing and being, student experience, embodiment, and a lot of discourse analysis. So looking at text or media or materials from different perspectives and from different cultural and countries of origin. Lastly, I focused on distributed learning. So students, through interacting in both the online space and in the meeting spaces, were able to create shared meaning and to connect to a shared experience. that contributed to their own knowledge making and also contributed to creating the learning space. So that was what I wanted to present just about what I had done. Lastly, I would like to just acknowledge that I think a lot of my grounding, like as I began my talk presentation, I did seek to ground my practice, and I have to acknowledge that the university's focus on Indigenous knowledges and methodologies, and my kind of adherence and learning of those Indigenous knowledges and methodologies really kind of was part of the grounding of how I grounded my local experience in this global space that is the internet and the online learning space. So with that, I will pass to the next speaker, and thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I couldn't show my slides because they're really awesome, colorful, and fun.
Thank you very much. I think I'm actually next, and I'm going to try sharing my slides now, and we'll see if it actually works. Okay, let's see. Looks like we might be getting success here. Okay.
Yay.
And I'll make myself visible on video so you can see who you're talking to. Okay. If there's luck, you'll be seeing an image in a second here. Okay, there we go. I hope people can see that. Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Coltman. I'm a graduate student from the University of Windsor, taking master's degrees in political science and sociology on my way to a PhD in sociology, social justice. And I'm here today to present work with my supervisor from the sociology department, Dr. Omorodion. And with that said, I'm just going to go through what I have and see if I can make it to the next slide here. So my presentation title and our abstract for what we're writing the paper for next week that we're submitting has to do with the experiences of students at the University of Windsor. But we noticed over the 2 days that much of what we found has been already discussed, what the international students' experiences are. So what I wanted to do is take my brief time today to focus on what we had for solutions. We recognize going into this that understandably the COVID-19 pandemic has created a new normal for all students attending post-secondary institutions in Canada. However, our contention as such has brought an increased learning anxiety and burden to international students, especially those living distances from their families. And with international students enrollment numbers approaching 25% at the University of Windsor, we thought it was paramount to explore approaches that address equitable and effective integration under the change to online learning at the University of Windsor. So as I said, our basic research of the outcomes of that is going to be written up, but I just want to go through what you see on the screen, our overarching contention and solution, and tell you the terminology I'm using. Our contention that a framework of universal design for learning, or the synonym universal design of instruction, and differentiated learning is the best approach to actually helping not only students that are international students, but all students. Collectively, such are frameworks for teaching and learning that consider and address the widest possible variety of learning needs, styles, and preferences. And the important thing about UDL and its goal to maximize the learning of all students in a classroom so that no students are stigmatized for their differences. And it's that stigma element that we thought was a very big, important aspect of why this is our solution. As such, acknowledge that our classrooms have a wide range of students with different backgrounds and prior knowledge that range and also range in their ability levels. And also importantly, employing UDL in a classroom does not get rid of specific accommodations made for students, but will lessen the number of students needing to seek and receive accommodations. So going into that, just again, it's a bit more terminology here, but just to clarify, in differentiated instruction, the instructor modifies content and or processes in response to student needs identified during the instruction. By contrast, the UDL is a framework for the instructor to proactively customize and create the lesson for the broadest range of students from the beginning of your course strategization. In other words, UDL proactively evaluates the classroom instruction and environment and provides access to the content on the front end, while differentiated instruction reactively evaluates individual students and retrofits and modifies on the back end. And we see this as being the best solution, again, to approach not only for international students, but for all, recognizing it'll probably help the international students the most with problems we identified. So about the UDL framework, there's three overarching principles and 4 main considerations. The principles are the first of representation, providing multiple ways of representation for diverse learners. The second is expression, providing multiple ways for students to express themselves, what they know and have learned. And the third, engagement, providing multiple ways to engage students' interests in connection with the curriculum. The 4 main considerations then are what are the goals of the individual lessons in the course, what materials will be used, what methods of teaching are being used to help students learn, and what are the means of assessment. This slide represents the guidelines that connect to those considerations. With representation described the goal of being to create resourceful and knowledgeable learners, increasing the variety in which content is received by students through visual and auditory means. Presenting information and content in different ways is how such is accomplished, with strategies to increase comprehension by transforming accessible information into usable knowledge. In terms of action and expression, the goal is to create strategic and goal-directed learners. The how is to differentiate how students can express what they know. And in doing so, such will provide options for physical action, expression, and communication using multiple media, creation tools, and scaffolding. And lastly, to provide options for executive functions such as goal setting, planning, graphic organizing, and metacognition. And respective of the third principle, engagement, the goal of that is to create purposeful and motivated learners through stimulating their interest and motivation for learning, increasing interest through individual choice and autonomy, relevance, and lowering affective filters. Some of the things that the presenter before me was just discussing, what she did in conjunction with her project. And that also ties in things like sustaining effort and persistence with goals and objectives, appropriate challenges, collaboration and community, and mastery-oriented feedback. So the idea is to approach all of these collectively to, again, consider the whole environment rather than having to go back and proactively gauge the problems. I'm going to provide you with a bit of an example just on the front end of developing a course syllabus, for instance, for any core course, and how such could be done to actually put these things in action. Such could be used by an instructor to set the class climate, identifying specific learning objections, and discussing the options for accessibility. But the UDL considerations of this tie into the fact that, for instance, accommodations are often placed at the end of a syllabus. From a UDL perspective, consider placing these at the top of a syllabus to ensure that your students see the supports available and setting the tone that you want them to succeed, and also allowing them to actually feel it's accessible to approach you if they foresee any difficulties, such as some of the issues we noted throughout the past 2 days about internet connectivity, book access, time zone conflicts, or things such as disability accommodations or just general learning accommodation needs. Respective of your course description, you want to do things like highlight the goals of the course and include an instructor's note about why the course material is relevant to students. Respective of the course objectives, state in your syllabus what the objectives will be connected directly to in respect to the assignments so that students understand the topic and the purpose. And also consider breaking up topics to help students see the structure of a course material. You can also possibly do this through graphic organization or other ways to tie on multiple ways of learning. And also increase the objective to ask students to identify features that might increase their own awareness and their own learning preferences. Respective of materials, there's a tie-in there. Use a variety of materials beyond printed text to increase the options for representation and increase engagement, and invite students to contribute to the collection of the materials to increase ownership of the course. Again, something my prior speaker is speaking to. Be sure that any materials included in the course are accessible to all learners, including the links to outside resources and tools such as YouTube videos, blogs, presentations, PowerPoints, PDFs, etc., and that ties in again to some of the things that are specific needs for international students given the current climate we're in. for time here, I'm just going to move on, but I don't see how to move my slide. There we are. Okay, so to get to my main idea here, wrapping it up. As we are drafting and describing in our conference paper to be submitted, we think that all students' educations can be enhanced by incorporating small changes consistent with the UDL and DI model in classrooms, especially during such trying times as these, with a switch to online education and social distancing for all students. But by acknowledging such, we also emphasize that international students, whom are a significant component of our campus communities, have had a particularly difficult time during this pandemic, given their unique situations. Moving to such a model as we've just described will greatly assist not only those international students who want to emphasize in our focus of today's conference and our papers to be connected to such being for publication, but also will improve educational outcomes for all students in doing so. Recognizing, kind of like my quote says, everyone's a genius, but you have to think about how you're going to judge it, access it. Otherwise, you won't see the variety in the students' abilities. And just I want to kind of leave you here with some reflective questions that tie into this. As individual instructors and academics, we ask that you reflect on your teaching approaches to support students, to identify next steps, where you could make one-off changes for learners that could be offered to everyone from the start, and how this ideas, as I've kind of outlined them, could possibly tie into your practice. And as we go into the Q&A after, if you'd like to ask me some questions about the background that led into this as our solution, that's perfectly fine. As I said, we wanted to highlight and emphasize the pros, the things that could be actually made effective, rather than all of the problems, since we realized that was becoming a lot of the focus over the past 2 days. And with that, I'm just going to leave you with my contact information and open it up to questions and allow for our next presenter to take over from me. Thank you very much. And I believe I heard our next presenter. Are you able to take over from me? Okay, I'm going to let you go. Okay, are you able to do it now? I've got the take control button back, so I think that means control is with you. There you go. Okay.
You're still muted, by the way. We can't hear.
Oh, sorry. So, are you able to see my slides now?
Yep.
And my co-presenter, Xiang Ying, are you here?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So, shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks to the organizer for the opportunity to share our work with an international audience. I'm Elaine Koo. I'm an associate professor teaching stream at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. My co-presenter is Dr. Xiang Ying Fu, assistant professor teaching stream. Our topic is the use of culturally responsive pedagogy in supporting international students. Okay. I will first identify the challenges faced by students with low academic English proficiency and describe how we pivoted a long-running program to a fully online one. Xiang Ying will present on the role of culturally responsive pedagogy, and then I'll wrap up with the data. We hope to invite an active discussion session arising from the pedagogical insights gained. So remote learning during the pandemic has exacerbated the vulnerabilities of many English language learners. Living in home communities and speaking their own languages, these students find it daunting to cope with academic English needed for reading and writing their many assignments. When we had to suddenly figure out how to support English language learners remotely, from living in diverse geographical locations, we converted an 8-week program that had been running for many years into a 1-month fully online one. This is a non-credit co-curricular program offered through the Center for Teaching and Learning. We added an academic integrity module because that is very important. Students are encouraged to write every day if possible. They read the course materials for 40 minutes and then write for 20 minutes. Students are encouraged to write every day. Instructors respond 2 to 3 times per week, and once every 2 weeks, the students get a 30-minute virtual meeting with the instructor. Since every student has different starting points and a unique combination of learning needs and challenges, the personalized support accelerates individual progress. There's no risk and is non-judgmental. Also, there's no penalty for stopping at any time. Students with low academic English proficiency face many challenges at university. For instance, they fail the first year of university at a higher rate than the more fluent peers. International students are more likely to be reported for plagiarism, resulting in stress and trauma. As such, it's extremely important to support students with low academic English proficiency by providing them with an opportunity to know the level of academic English in a risk-free and confidential manner, and guide them towards proactive, sorry, my slides moved too fast, and guide them towards proactive support more suitable to them. At the University of Toronto, Scarborough, this is achieved through the DELNA, which is the Diagnostic English Language Needs Assessment Screening Test from University of Auckland. A student identified to be a Band 1 through the screening test is linguistically at risk, as the level of English proficiency is inadequate to cope with the academic needs. Besides international students with low English language proficiency, many other students too may test at Band 1 and need similar supports. So our research questions in this retrospective analysis is, what is the efficacy of the culturally responsive pedagogy for international students, especially with low academic English proficiency, in online teaching and learning during the pandemic? And what are the insights gained? Our first iteration of the fully online program in the fall had 154 students, and in winter there were 226 students. This program attracts a large number of Band 1 students, many of whom are international students. However, we would like to note that it is the lack of academic English proficiency that is the determinant for academic success rather than international or domestic status. As part of a larger study, this analysis presented here will focus on the at-risk students categorized as at Band 1. Students in the program were divided into 8 groups in the fall and 9 groups in winter. I would like to hand over to Xiang Ying to present the next part.
Thank you, Yilin. The pedagogy we have used for this Band 1 international students is a culturally responsive pedagogy. So culturally responsive pedagogy is defined as using the cultural characteristics, experiences, and perspectives of ethnically diverse students as a conduit for teaching them more effectively. And also, culturally responsive teaching is inclusive, empowering, transformative, emancipatory, and humanistic. And there are 6 strategies we have used related to the culturally responsive pedagogy. Excuse me, Yilin. Yeah, thank you. So, namely, they are culturally bridging, personalized feedback, learner autonomy and empowerment, teachers as collaborators, and humanistic teaching. So I'm going to talk about the first approach we have used as a part of the CRP, Culturally Responsive Pedagogy, for this Band 1 international students. So culturally bridging stresses that teachers are certain all students are capable of learning by building scaffolding between students' life experiences and where they are expected to reach in their academic life, and building bridges between students' existing knowledge and the new knowledge they will acquire, When teachers learn about their students regarding where they are in their lives, personally, professionally, and academically, teachers can efficiently work with students to enhance their enthusiasm for learning, as well as providing students with culturally oriented and mediated instruction. The second approach we have used is providing our students with personalized feedback. So this means the culturally responsive teacher takes students' different backgrounds and needs into consideration, as the culturally responsive teaching is inclusive. So the instructor closely monitors each student's progress by tracking the changes and the improvements in each student's writing. Before the instructor reads her students' new journals, she compares their former journals written in different stages, as well as her former feedback carefully to see in what aspects the students have improved and might still lack. So the third method we have applied is learner autonomy and empowerment. Culturally responsive teaching is empowering, transformative, and liberating. Learner autonomy and empowerment enhance student confidence and transfer learning. The culturally responsive teacher often encourages students to use their strengths to overcome challenges and voice their diverse perspectives by offering students positive feedback first, coupled with detailed constructive suggestions at the end. Students love this practice and are so willing to integrate the feedback each time with their following journals. So the next approach is teachers as collaborators. When teachers regard themselves as partners, co-educators, and co-learners, the learning has been turned into an inquiry-based journey. Thus, knowledge building has become reciprocal and productive because students play an active role in developing their learning experiences in this equitable power-sharing environment. As students are able to see themselves in the curriculum as equal participants and contributors. Last but not least is humanistic teaching. As CRP is humanistic and ethical, care and compassion humanize learning. The culturally responsive instructor respects students' differences, treats students as people first and foremost, and regards their languages and cultures as resources instead of deficits. So I'm going to pass it over to Eileen.
Thanks, Xiangying. So I'll present our fall data. Since Band 1 students greatly need to improve their academic English competence and confidence in using English, the number of words they write in the program is a direct indicator of the amount of written practice relevant to their academic English needs. If a Band 1 student writes every day, or almost every day, that student has spent at least 25 hours in that month communicating in English academic conversation with the instructor. So let's pause for a moment to do the math. If a student writes at least 250 words a day, in 25 days, that adds up to 6,250 words. As you can see in the table, in all the groups, the students exceeded that milestone, with the Culturally Responsive Pedagogy group writing more. Seeing what students were able to write in the fall, we articulated a clear goal during the winter term. We said that every journal entry needs to be at least 250 words. So now let's look at the winter data. In the winter semester, all the groups far exceeded the 6,250 word per person per month milestone. The Culturally Responsive Group had written over 11,500 words each on average in that 1 month, while the other groups had written over 10,000 words each on average. We would argue that when a linguistically at-risk student produces so much writing within a month, it changes the student's level of competence and confidence with academic English to handle the course needs. So to answer research question 1, the data from both semesters show that students in the Culturally Responsive Pedagogy group were engaged in greater language practice and usage. So some pedagogical insights gained is that low proficiency students who would otherwise be feeling marginalized and had benefited greatly from the daily opportunity to communicate about academic topics for 1 month. The Culturally Responsive Pedagogy group had written over 11,500 words each, and the other group over 10,000 words each on average. That confidence we see in the writing and reflection at the end of the month indicates that these students enjoyed connecting with the instructor and felt a sense of belonging. It was transformative indeed for these students. When students get timely and personalized feedback to the ideas, they were encouraged to communicate more because it was enjoyable. They developed confidence to bring their diverse lived experiences into the learning. They felt they belonged and they had a voice in participating in the academic conversation. Instructors too benefited a great deal, learning from the students, not just the different ways of knowing, learning, and communicating, but also about topics students were learning about in their courses. When students got the opportunity to teach by sharing their thoughts of what they were learning with the instructors and receiving supportive, non-judgmental, intellectually stimulating feedback that also guides them about academic writing expectations and academic integrity, they were very motivated. These Band 1 students were writing far more than students generally write for their assignments. There was no incentive to cheat or to plagiarize. There was no waste of faculty time or emotional labor leading to catching or policing academic integrity violations. And a sense of inclusivity propelled students towards developing as academic English users. So this raises the question, are there ways we can consider to reimagine learning where the asynchronous communication afforded by our virtual space can be leveraged to incorporate elements of culturally responsive pedagogy that allows linguistically at-risk students to cross the milestone to become confident users in different teaching situations, teaching learning situations? In other words, can we rethink our support for our students to enable them to have a transformative experience and be empowered? So, my last slide. Okay, by accentuating this learner-driven, instructor-facilitated support with culturally responsive pedagogy, our data shows that it is not what we do for the low proficiencies international students, but rather what we do with them that changes the learning experience to lead to learner transformation. We need to help our students feel connected and that they belong in this new academic community. And we welcome learning from their different lived experiences that they bring into the teaching learning virtual space. So the limitations of this study is that this analysis was done retrospectively after analysis for program evaluation showed promising results. It is small scale and exploratory. In future, we could plan to incorporate a longitudinal component to follow first-year Band 1 students over the course of the study. As intercultural competence is involved in the instructor and student dynamics, we would like to interview instructors on what they learned from supporting diverse students in this way. And with 9 different instructors, it would be worthwhile studying if some instructor strategies work better than others in supporting Band 1 international students. Okay, here are the references, and thank you very much for attention. We would love to to engage in conversation. Thank you. Did I exceed the time?
We were ahead of schedule. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Since I think all presentations are done, so to open up the floor to any questions and any conversations that you want to have.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind asking a question of the presenters who just presented, because some of their points tie in a bit with mine. I'm a bit curious.
All right, yes.
I really liked your point about the slide 4 about the teacher collaboration, because like one of the issues we found, as you said, it was intensified during the pandemic, was the international students who actually met the language criteria in the classrooms were getting cited with plagiarism more often than not, and it was increased, and then they often get punished for it. When our contention is tied in with what we were suggesting about changing the whole core curriculum not to stigmatize students, was that you be upfront and discuss with students what they should know, what they should be expected, give examples, all of these things up front. And I noticed in your quote, you said that was a student kind of quote about they appreciated the feedback. Now, my question of you, we're looking at an approach for individual instructors when we're talking UDI and DI in our presentation and our solution that takes it to an individual instructor and asks them to consider implementing this in a course. But we don't currently have an overarching faculty or university mandate that they'd have to do anything like that. So as you noted, students are getting caught with plagiarism for the very reasons you noted. I'm just kind of curious in your research, are you coming up with suggestions for the overarching curriculum aspect of universities? Are you still kind of keeping it with the idea they should have, like you, 9 individual teaching assistive groups or whatever to help those students along be supported outside of the regular programs? Or do you have any ideas on that, of how that could be changed at a larger scale, is I guess what I'm asking? Because you even identified yourself, you work with a small group, right?
Yes. So I was working from the Center for Teaching and Learning, and what we're doing was to explore what it would be like if this can be achieved. And from lessons learned, we'll get that as part of the training across board through the Center of Teaching and Learning to disseminate with instructors. Because what we have found from the research is that if we introduce academic integrity to students early, not as I tell you what these are our rules. If you don't do it, you are in trouble. We avoided that. What we tried to do was to let them explore in a no-risk way, and because there are no marks involved, there's no risk in asking. It was very enriching to see what students were asking and noting about what they didn't know from the different backgrounds. So I think taking this approach across all courses would be very respectful of individual students from different cultures. And because they feel respected, it wasn't imposed on them, but it was a discovery of what is it that they didn't know that they are learning about, and which they could bring up in a risk-free way in the journal entry number 2, where they're supposed to focus on academic integrity, so that the instructor can respond again in a supportive and encouraging way and in mutual discovery. Does that make sense?
Thank you for answering my question. I look forward to reading your conference paper if you submit one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, we will.
Eileen, we have another 2 questions.
Oh.
So the first one is from Lubuko. Yeah, sorry if I pronounce your name in the wrong way. So did you look at the content of the students' reflections for your research? Hi.
Oh. Hello, thank you for the question.
Hello.
How to pronounce your name?
Nobuko.
Oh, Lubuko. Yeah, nice to
Hi.
see you. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you answered some of it with what you just said about how the students understood academic integrity or plagiarism in a low risk way. So that was my curiosity, was if you looked at what they had written, not just the content, like the amount that they wrote.
No, it wasn't just what counts. What is important is that they felt it was a genuine communication between instructor and students. So unlike a lot of conventional thinking about supporting supporting English language learners, which tend to see them in deficit mode and say, oh, you need to go for that course. Here was so totally out of the experience, where they come in and we welcome what differences you bring, and we explore, we understand you better and you understand us better. And it was a happy space, to use the term of one of the instructors. It was their happy space. Happy for instructor, happy for students.
That sounds good, yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of interaction then, like regular feedback, and
yes,
sounds good.
So what we're arguing is that universities should invest in this proactive support, because it doesn't cost more than the regular support they're giving, but it is actually anticipating further trauma and frustrations down the road. And it's a better student learning experience.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer Marisa's question.
Okay.
What were some of the most efficient ways the instructors give personalized feedback? Thank you. This is a great question. Indeed, the personalized feedback is a key or the core of the RWE program. Eileen is our collaborator and also the founder of this program. And RWE is her baby. Yeah, 15 to 16 years old. We often say in this way, when Eileen treat all the instructors and the teachers, she focused on the provision of personalized feedback and how important it is. So for us, we never use one fits all for all stereotypical feedback like the formula to give to all students. Instead, we read each student's journals and just target these students' exact needs, concerns, and struggles. For example, when the students come in their journals, they express their concerns. For example, some students are doing very well in their readings, but they are struggling with writing. So the personalized feedback is to target just the writing skills, because the reading is fine with the students. And in terms of writing, some students are worrying about their thesis statements, while some other students are concerned about their paragraph development. So we just cater to the individual needs and interests and provide the exact and the right personalized or customized feedback the student needs. And there is another example. For some students who are doing well in writing and reading, but have no idea about some study skills, such as how to take notes, how to prepare for tests, and how to attend professors' lectures and try to fully understand the academic assignments. So we as RWE instructors with the CP pedagogy, we also address their needs by providing our students with specific strategies and share with them some useful resources and links. For example, I had a student. In fact, at the very beginning, his score was so low, and he could only write a couple of sentences when he first joined the RWE program. He told me he hated academic writing, and it was his headache. But he was so passionate about creative writing, and he thought creative writing and academic writing were totally contradictory sides. So after my numerous conversations with him in the discussion board and also in the synchronous meetings, I told him they are not contradictory. Still, there are some intersectionalities. You need originality, and also we need to hear. So in this way, I just direct him gradually from creative writing to academic writing. So it turned out he wrote 1,200 words academic paper, the first one in his life. He told me a milestone. So I wonder whether I have answered the question. Marisa, thank you.
I think Gina has.
Yeah, she has her hand raised.
Yeah, sorry about that, Gina.
Yeah, hi. I wondered about you are doing like a lot of writing. So how do you choose the topics for the writing? Is it all centered on just academic topics or related to the classes that the students are taking, or do they have some input onto the topics?
Yes, I can take that question. Now, this is a really key question because, you know, very often students in the old model where it's one size fits all, students are asked to take, you know, an ESL class and so on. They're learning something which is relevant to that class. But what we've done here is to make it learner driven. So the student chooses what's most important and relevant for that student to read in a 40 minutes each day. So naturally, a lot of students ask, can I read my course material? Of course, that's exactly what we want them to do. But then they feel they have the agency to choose the materials. If they have 5 courses, they could read this course today and read another course tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Or they could just read in one course. So what is important, students tell us after that, for the first time, I actually kept up with my readings in my courses. And for first-year students, because they get to choose what they have to read, they are motivated because they're learning and because they're following from week to week. Their course, their lectures make sense to them because they were not left behind. So to answer the question, it's the students who choose what they need to read in the 40 minutes. And that's important because then they're reading what's most relevant to them.
And what about the writing topics? So then they have a writing topic. So they're reading,
Yes.
you know, they're what's relevant to them. So how do you, because you know, when you sit down to write, that's usually, you know, sometimes it's just the topic is way too broad or you'd have no interest. So I just wonder, how do the students choose the writing topics?
All right, because what we're trying to do is to use this program in order for students to learn the skills most important for the academic writing. So we tell them, you read, but you summarize for the instructor because the instructor is not reading what you read. So the students are learning summarizing skills. And then the students will add their thoughts about it, their critical thinking about it. And that, again, is something that many students coming from different parts of the world are not aware that they should be bringing in that critical thinking and questioning, interrogating the text, and so on. So this is where they learn to develop the voice.
May I add something here? Yeah, in fact, we have made some recommendations for our students in their first 2 journals. So journal 1, we suggest they write an introductory journal to introduce their backgrounds, where they are from, their interests, their goals at the end of the RWE, and what they would like to work on, like what kind of areas they would like to focus on. So students love this because this is very personalized and they are eager to write a lot. For the second journal, we also recommend they should write something about their understanding of the academic integrity and integrate their knowledge of the academic integrity with the RWE program. So from the second journal, we have raised their awareness. And as the program proceeds, so whenever students are citing something, they keep asking us, have I done the correct thing in citation? Yeah, should I add the author's names or the publishers? So I think in this way, we could use some practical examples, not just focus on, like some formulas. This is plagiarism. Don't do this, don't do that. But while they are writing their reflective journals, then they will know where I'm wrong, how should I improve? And also, students, they are from different disciplines across the curriculum, like social sciences, humanities, and natural sciences. So students always like to choose their own topics in their areas. For some students, they even choose some very popular topics, yeah, like some films, but it's in a critical and a reflective way. The first paragraph is a summary. The second paragraph is reflection. Yeah, we are very happy because they have become such critical readers, writers, and thinkers at the end of our program. Thank you. Have we answered your question?
Yeah, it sounds like a great program, actually.
Thank
And
you.
Point about approaching academic integrity more as a conversation, because what we know is that in different educational contexts, how we present other people's work and how we even quote or pull from other people's work is different. So I think it's just so respectful to see you doing it in that way, and it's a very refreshing approach. So I'm so happy to hear your presentation, and it's really refreshing and kind of really affirms what I'm doing in my own program. Very similar pedagogy methodology, just a different topic area. So I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your positive feedback. I would like to add something quickly before we answer Linda's question. So students, we can model our language and how to cite a problem. Just now, an idea occurred to me. And once I cited some quotes for my students. And then because one quote, I could not find the source. So in the bracket, I mean, not because I could not find the source. There is no source. Then in the bracket, I wrote unknown. The student commented in his journal, wow, I found that how to cite a quote. So I did not know the author, or there was no author at all. You did model the language for me. So next time I'll do in the same way. So I think that means it works. Thank you. So Linda, yeah, thank you.
My actually question is going back to the first presenter. I'm actually rather happy at the moment because what I chose to present about my solutions focus ties in neatly, sandwiched between the two of you that have done extensive research on elements that have tied in with my overarching. I was just basically going to ask Gina for examples. Her cultural, again, her targeted focus. I found that would actually help at the classroom scale for every kind of model. I was just wondering if she had any simple examples that could kind of spread across. I know her research was more in depth and we didn't get to see her slides, but I was just going to kind of end it on that. I would have loved more small practical examples from her.
Oh, well, when I moved to the online, I really looked for just online, what could students access as text? So, because usually in our experiential program, we would use the event as text, kind of, so it might be a cultural celebration, or it might be a university. Like I'll give you a good example. So the University of Saskatchewan, we always have a graduation powwow. So that is an event, but from that event, there's so much rich materials that we can find. So we have an online PDF about powwow and all the different dances, all the different, some history of it. Some of you can connect to kind of indigenous spiritual practices. And from there, then you can go into the intercultural aspect, so people can talk about their own. So I really just looked for anything that had a bit of some online text, and I really used a lot of discourse analysis. My focus is not academic with students, so it's really it's on intercultural skills and intercultural understanding. So I did things like art was really great. I did art and culture and art. So our local art gallery had some exercises that you could do, and again I found an indigenous focus because I like doing that. People can learn about our indigenous people in Canada. So from that, we did some art, then we did some sharing, and students shared just amazing architecture, museums from their own country, art from their own country, and we were able to, in the discussion groups, just discuss and talk about it. And I think that even in I have a social science background, so the whole idea of discourse analysis and looking at deeper meaning in text or digital text, that's kind of the methodology I was using. So I did all kinds of music, art, events, indigenous knowledges. So does that answer your question, Linda?
Yes, it does actually. Thanks very much. And I look forward to, if you submit something for publication as well, reading that and follow up. Or seeing your slides if you submit those as well for the conference proceedings. Thank you very much.
There's just a question. So I did use the discussion forums, and what I did with the discussion forums is I had people add photos, like they were so colorful and beautiful, and that's one thing I found with the online resources, is that people could just show their screen all the time. They could always show pictures. So on the discussions, they would put pictures and links, small videos, and then I would draw from those discussions. I would put them all into a PowerPoint, so that when we had our meetings such as this, I would be showing their slides. So I'd have and even their words, I would pull their discussion writing into my PowerPoint so that they could talk about what they posted. So for English language learners, it became the writing element as well as the speaking element. And again, it wasn't an academic focus. It was more focused on culture and their own experience as a student. But in a way, it's a very non-threatening way to interact and be using the language. So that's what I did. I used the discussion boards, PowerPoints, and just tried to open up how they what formats they could use to contribute to discussion boards.
I think that's really valuable, Gina, because it's helping students from different places feel that they are interacting as a global community, and especially to see their work drawn into your PowerPoint as you hold a class and you talk about it. There's such a strong relational aspect of it that I feel is something we see in our research, but which you are also doing in a more multimedia way. That's just fantastic. And I think that's so important to students from different cultures. They haven't stepped into Canada. So it is a chance to really interact. And I've also had students say to me in my class, outside of the program we talked about, like the first time that they could present, they realized that this is the first time I'm presenting to an international audience, because all the members of the class are from different places, different countries. So I think students appreciate, and we need to have more of these for them to feel that they are, that they have a place in the academic community. Yeah,
and a place that values their
differences,
their differences and their experience. That they're not always having to kind of adjust to, or to the Canadian context, because we are more and more in a global society, and I think that we need the knowledges and the intelligences and the input of all different types of people and cultural knowledges to kind of face the challenges we face as a global society, really.
Yes. Thank you. Is there any other questions, anything?
We'll give it a minute, see if there's any more questions in the chat.
Thanks. So we did everything in good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're ahead of
thanks.
schedule.
Thanks everybody for your coming, your time and your interest.
Yes.
Yeah, we appreciate your very interesting and important feedback, and we enjoyed the other presenters' great presentations as well. Yeah, so look forward to more collaboration with you guys in the near future, and have a great weekend. Take care. Thanks.
Yeah, I second that, Xiangming.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for such a great session that we, we could learn from each other's work.
I agree. Thank you. I really appreciated being sandwiched between both such great presentations myself. So it helped
Thanks.
validated what I was doing in my research as well. So that's wonderful.
So we all need to be in contact.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
I think there actually was a conference, wasn't there? Isn't that part of what's going to be done in the follow-up through the publication guide, if I gather correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Thank you all. Yeah, I spoke a quick bit fast. I got nervous and
thanks
rushed
to
through a bit,
George.
but I think the timing worked for you because I gave you the extra minute or two. So all worked well.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah,
So
great.
glad to be in this session. And thanks to George's encouragement.
Yeah, thank you.
Have
Okay.
a great weekend, everybody.
Okay. And thanks to our moderator.
No problem.
See ya.
This session is slated to end in 5 minutes, and so obviously I think we can just end it here. I'll end the recording, and you can join the next event that which should start at 3:40.
Would that be possible to forward the recording to Yilin and me?
The recording, I asked them, the head moderator, it will be made available within 2 weeks. We're going to compile them all into like one big thing, so you can watch every other presenter at the same time.
Like, can we download by ourselves, like our own session?
I can ask the moderation, but I think you will be. I think they're just going to be all uploaded into YouTube into like one playlist. So like session A, session B, session C, and then you can just pick your video and you can download it afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, because I know as an immigrant, it's sometimes hard to like connect, and the work you guys are doing is really amazing. And it's nice to see that people are actually taking steps forward to help others out. Some that might be felt like left out in the Canadian system or any education system. So I want to say thank you very much deeply. Like you guys are taking the time in your careers to do this.
Thank you so much for the encouragement. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye all. All the best to you in your future and your research. Take care.
Thanks. The same to you.
Bye-bye.